went down to I can tell that.
Funny on Friday. You didn't want. You didn't say haha.
I got my business in Bali. Year travel. Travel business I do. Keep in touch.
So we're gonna start again. Nicholas has conference call with PCAOB, so when he's done, he's gonna come back, and I think we are a little bit behind. So we're gonna skip, descriptive statistic, which is basic one. I believe the most we already know. So we're gonna move to something fun. So Vincent.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Yun-Sung Wang. I'm a third-year PhD student here, and today I'm going to just introduce some of the data mining and the data mining and the machine learning. So, what is data mining? Data mining is a kind of data extraction, information extraction from big data, and we previously unknown, but it's potentially useful information for data. So our analysis, we're using the analysis dig into the big data, and we want to extract the information for us or rules for the auditors to use. So why do we need machine learning? Machine learning because now we have ERP system, we have subsystem and set, and there are a lot of data, the structured data and the unstructured data. For the unstructured data, for example, we have electronic commerce, there's web store, and people, you click on those web store, and we can analyze the web click string data, or the GPS data, RFID data, the tags on each inventory that auditors can use to track those inventories. So the computers become cheaper and powerful, and the data become bigger and bigger. So the traditional techniques want invisible for us to use, and we need more advanced tools, such as machine learning tools, to analyze the big data. And for the machine learning and the data mining tools can be used to analyze the marketing, such as the market segregation, the risk analysis, the fraud detection, the credit card fraud, and the financial statement fraud, and the text mining, the news of the textual information from the news, or the web click stream, and the data visualization give us an instant intuition of the story of what is going on in this big picture. So data mining has several tasks, and in general it was divided into predictive task and descriptive task, and we sometimes divide them as classification, clustering, association rule discovery, regression, and anomaly detection. So first is classification. We have a bunch of the historical records. We call it training data set, and we want we want to build a model out of the training data. The model for class attributes as a function of the value of the other attributes, which means we want to use the vector of x to predict the class, the 1 or 0 or some other categorical outcomes. So the goal of classification is previous unseen records should be assigned as a class as accurately as possible. So here is an example. We got a training data here. Here's the ID, and the married status, married or single, the sex or female, male, the annual income, and he's going to buy. Here's the class label. He's going to buy sports car, family car, or minivan, whatever. And we use the training data, put them into the machine try to ask the machine to generate a model out of this training data, and we then use the trained model, apply to the other observations that we didn't know their class. For example, this female, the married, has 30,000 income per year, and what she is going to buy a class, the sports car or the family car. Another classification is credit card fraud detection, because we have historical records that the machine can learn the every transactions, and some transactions are suspicious, some transactions are not. If some transactions are blocked due to some fraud reason, and this machine can learn those fraud transactions, so in the future, this machine can automatically block those transactions or block that account to prevent the further damage. So this machine can, if we get some information to input to the machine, and the machine can learn what the customer is going to buy, what did he buy, and how often he purchased. Another application of classification is the financial statement fraud detection. We know the management want to kind of manipulate the financial statement and doing the earnings management thing, and we want to extract the information from the financial ratios and financial ratios or some other informations from the stock market, from the analyst forecast, and we want to use those as an input to build a model and use this model to predict whether that financial statement is a fraudulent financial statement or non-fraudulent financial statement. Here is the example of the visualization. The famous example is the Aries flower dataset. The flowers are measured in several attributes. For example, the number of the petals and the height of the stem, and the flower color, etc. And you can easily see using the clustering, the data points are scattered into 3 groups. If we label them correctly, we can use those information to identify if for example, if the next flower it has 3 petals, it is this like 2 centimeters high and with blue, or with what kind of flower it is. So this is a visualization. Here is another example is that you see the female in the East Coast is much more than the male. There are more female in the East Coast than the male in the West Coast. So if there is some kind of and here is the web click stream. We can use the web click stream to identify how the customers link through one website to another website, and what is the pattern of he review the products, and how can the vendors provide their goods to the customers. The clustering is another application of the machine learning or data mining. In this clustering different from classification, because classification has labels. In the training data has labels, but for the clustering it don't have the labels. So if we want to group different subjects together, we need to use their different measures, and we measure their every subjects from different perspectives and calculate the distance from one subject to another subject, and the closer the better. So if we calculate the mutual distance, the objective is like this. We want to minimize the interclass distance and maximize the interclass distance. So we want to make them, separate them in a clear and concise way. One application of clustering is the market segmentation. There are many types of customers, and they have different types of purchase pattern. If we using the customer information correctly, we can segment the customers into different groups and treat them into different marketing strategies. And other clustering is other clustering example is the clustering of documents. And one of our projects is working on some kind of contract, and if we measure the contract in a proper way, so for example, how many words and what types of words they are using, and we cluster different different types of contract together, and we want to identify patterns in one type of different contract and extract a template out of one type of contract. So that's a contract analysis. Another task of the machine learning is association rule discovery. For example, here is an sample of the customer purchase item from a store. If they purchase bread, Coke, milk, then they purchase the bread, beer, and bread. So if we use the machine to know the item they purchase, they will discover some kind of rule that if somebody purchases milk, they will definitely purchase a Coke. Well, if somebody purchases a diaper and milk, it must be your father, and he's going to buy a beer. So that is the association rule discovered in the items purchased in the store by every customers. So this association rule can be applied in many fields, such as if a customer's service vehicle want to minimize their commute, the number of commute transitions, and they need to what items and how many items they need to keep in their vehicle, and to optimize the equipment on their vehicle. Another association rule is Amazon.com production promotion. For example, if a customer purchases this item and he also purchases this item, and Amazon will give a recommendation what else he's going to purchase and what else it may be necessary for him to use. Another machine learning task is deviation and anomaly detection. Anomaly detection. When we doing the clustering analysis, we group all different transactions or different normal transactions together. So there is some kind of a group with very little observations. So that group might be anomalies or outliers from the major transactions, or some transactions are distance far away from the major transactions. We call them outliers or anomalies. So basically, we can use the data mining to do different things, but the tasks I mentioned, such as classification, clustering, association rule analysis, and the anomaly detection. But beyond them, underneath, there are many algorithms we can use, the k-mean, k-median, etc. So we use different algorithms for every data set, every data warehouse to generate the target data, and we process the target data to well-organized, structured data, use the data mining algorithms to do the classification, clustering, association rule analysis, and the anomaly detection. Finally, we want to gain some kind of knowledge or information that previously we didn't know and we want to get from the data. And the artificial neural network is a type of the algorithm.
Maybe you are a bit too fast. Can you please go back to the previous?
Okay.
How you differentiate? No, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Because at the end of this picture here, you call it knowledge. How do you differentiate information and knowledge?
Oh, information knowledge. Differentiating this is if information is kind of like group the information together to generate a big broader view of this subjective or of this subject, we call it like a bigger view of the things, we call it like knowledge. And its informations are flows through one point to one point, and the information is like a stream. When the information getting bigger and concise and clear, and people can learn, we call it like knowledge. So it's like it extracts some patterns from the information, and we generate a knowledge to learn, to teach.
Is what we believe is information is a piece of, we can say the data or whatever. So let's say you're gonna make the decision, and without that information, you're not gonna make the better decision. And that's the piece of things is called as information. What I'm trying to say, let's say you got a data is a raw fact. Let's say today the temperature is 60 Fahrenheit. That's the data, right? And it doesn't give you much the information. So when you process this data with any additional information, so November 16th today, and on average across the world, their normal average is 15 Fahrenheit. So you can say that in here New York is much warmer than rest of the world, and that could be information. So when you process those raw facts, and they give you information. If you have information a lot, and you can make knowledge. Can you get it? Like it's hard to explain it, but information, a piece of the fact that you can use it for your decision. If you have lots of these piece of fact, and then that will generate your knowledge. It's more like, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I think I just said, if, for example, New York is warmer than the other world, then the knowledge is the decision to like sightseeing in the New York Times better.
So
times.
I'll give you another information. another example. Say, so your goal is, I want to know whether is this place in New York is warmer than rest of the world, right? So you got the one fact which is 60 Fahrenheit today in New York, and since you only have this fact, you're not going to be able to decide whether New York is warmer than rest of the world, right? So you collect another information from that, let's say New York or Manhattan or Indonesia or Seoul or Japan, and you got the average Fahrenheit, and which is a 60 Fahrenheit, right? So here is a 16 Fahrenheit. You can say that New York is warmer than rest of the world, but this is only only one day. So you got the one information, and you need another information tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Entire year. If you collect those information a lot, and then it comes to your knowledge that that New York is on average warmer than rest of the world. So this is called the knowledge. It's hard to explain, but
It's an abstract conceptual.
Inside of the
Information part of knowledge.
yeah, if you have lots of information,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that will be your knowledge.
give more understanding.
So the artificial neural network, as I mentioned, for data mining and machine learning, there are different tasks: classification, clustering, associative neural analysis. But underneath there are many algorithms. Today I'm going to give an example of the artificial neural network. The artificial neural network is an information processing paradigm that is inspired by the biological nervous system, which is this neural network try to mimic the activity of the human's brain, and the information are processed through one neuron to other neurons that just same as what we process are the electronic nerve from one neuron to another neuron in our brain. And the neural network is a massive processor that has a natural propensity for experimental knowledge and making it available to use. So for here, one typical algorithm for the artificial neural network is a multi-layer perceptron. It has many layers. I have a example to show. It has many layers with a lot of neurons, and we give the input layer, and with the predictors, the variables, or we call the independent variable in the regression. We have different variables to input, and through the hidden layers, or in the black box here, we get the output layer. The input layer is the layer which receives external information. The output layer produces a solution for the model to classify each observations or to make the prediction for the unseen records. So here is an example of the multi-layer neural network. This I use the picture from my project. The ratios. This is the ratios from the financial statement. There are a lot of ratios. My input has 200 ratios, and we process for every ratios have a neuron, and from this layer to this layer, those ratios are calculated by this machine to different neurons. There are 10 neurons for this design, and for the second layer, it has another 10 neurons, and which process the data from this layer to this layer, and finally, this machine makes a decision whether this financial statement is a misstated financial statement or not misstated financial statement. That's one way to detect the financial statement fraud. And we use IBM. We use IBM SPS modular, and our question. Here is the teaching slides for how to use IBM SPS modular to generate the neural network. The question is what are the characteristics of the customer's credit? Is a good credit customer or bad credit customer? And we have the training data for the customer. The training data have the scaled input like a numeric input, and the factor input like what we call the qualitative input. So the qualitative here and the quantitative here, and the output that can be a lot of. But in this case, the output is a binary. One is one is the customer with good credit. The second one is the customer with a bad credit. And we use those predictors to try to build a model to try to predict whether this customer is a good or bad. Here is variable description: the age of the customer, the employee or not, the address, the annual income of the customer, the debit to income ratio, the credit card debit balance, and the default. This is a label whether he's going to default or not. We input this data to the IBM SPS modeler, and the result shows that. Let me show you the result here. A training has 3 types. One is to put all the customers' data to put it in at once and let the machine learn what the customer will in the future will default or not. or online for every time there's transaction happen, or every time there is a customer default, this machine learns the lesson and put it into the records, and to prevent the to build a model, or try to train those model in small batches, like a group of people into small batches. And the output has this characteristic. This one. You see, for the training data, we use half of the observations for the training, and 40% for the test, and the whole holdout. So we divide our sample into three: one is training, one is testing, and the other one to validate our model is good or not. And the training error, here is the training error, and the percentage of the incorrect prediction is 60%, which means our correctly for 85%, we correctly classify the customer has a credit, bad credit or good credit. So in the testing, for testing sample, it has 30 percentage incorrect prediction, and for the holdout it has 23. That's obvious because when we build the model, we use this part of data to build the model, and we hold out other part of data to validate them good or bad. So some of the information in this data set will not be incorporated in the old model, and we want to, that's obvious, this error will be bigger than the previous data set. So there's the same, the overall correct percent is, for the training is 18, for the testing is also 87, and for the holdout test is 76%. Here's a graph that is the neural network show how it gradually learn, and what is the information gain. Here, the information gain, or what is the machine learn from the information they collect, and how they gradually achieve the prediction accuracy. Here list the important factors. The most important factor is whether this customer is employed or not. If this customer is employed, then it is a good one. So the second important factor is the credit to debit ratio, the address and the income, etc. The age is the last important one. So in summary, I just gave a brief demonstration of how we can use the neural network to build the model and to predict the customer with credit, with good credit or the bad credit. So with the same idea, we do the project in material financial statement misleading.
Could you go to the previous one?
Yes, sir?
So the summary is to define the good credit. What? How we can come out with that?
Okay, let's see. Here, so let's say, for example, if the machine builds the model based on the training data, and use the test data to improve the model, and this part of model the machine didn't say, so we can use the trained model to predict the people with to decide whether these people with good credit or bad credit. So we can use this to validate the machine with good. But if the validation is good, we can use that model in the future to predict whether this can be directly used. Okay. Yeah.
So these are the techniques in everywhere we can use it. For instance, in a government contract, reading the government contract, to find out whether it's in a suspicious contract or in a normal contract, humans are supposed to read it, make the decisions. But if you have tons of contracts, like 1,000 contracts every month, it is impossible to look at every single contract and determine that. So what we are trying to do is using those neural network or machine learning technique, build a model. The model, how we build based on prior data set. So some of the data set we divide into training data set. So learn the machine understand those data by using this training data set. And then we build a model. And then we test them and see whether it works or not. If there is a limitation, we can improve it. And then we have to decide whether it works or not. So we have another set of the data set. Even in the old data set, we can test it and we see that how much that model can predict. And then this model is good, like predictability like 95%. And we can use this model instead of human looking at those contracts
and support system.
and we can decide.
Yeah,
So there are several ways we can use it, and this is new technology, and people try to use it. And that's what he did it in the customer, and it could be used in the government context or anywhere.
It can be embedded in the expert system, decision system.
Yeah.
Decision support system.
Decision support system, so can be used.
So in the old days, building that kind of model is quite difficult to do it. But nowadays we have software that's just relatively cheap and easy to use. So
How do you validate the data? Because a lot of these analytic things, with the assumptions that the data quality is there at the first place, if it was wrong in the first place, then
So
the model may be processed the wrong data.
So data quality is, every data has a limitation. Every data limitation. So, he showed that whole diagram from the data to knowledge. And in general, when you do the data analytic, when you apply those data analytic technique, we spend quite a amount of time to preparing those data that we could use it for our model. So during these data preparations, we have to find out whether the data is correct or not. If it's not correct, you have to fix it somehow. You have to validate it. So most of the time when we spend to build this model, we 60 or 70% of time we handling with the data. So for instance, sometimes the data has a missing value.
Yes.
And we have to deal with it. The easiest way we can forget about this data set and use the data we have. That sometimes it doesn't make sense. So we have to find out how we can fill this data, those missing value. In the statistic there is that missing. There is a technique we can handle with those missing data. We can use regulations and put the regulation value into the data set or extrapolate. You can calculate them. You can put it there, and that's the time. We spend quite a amount of time to get the right data. But at the end of the day, the data has problems. Unless I don't know. So the question about data qualities is sometimes we have to deal with.
So it's like a time series analysis. When we have new.
So it could be time series analysis. It could be regulations. It depends on what you are looking for. Depends on your objective. You could use any of statistical model, and this is the machine learning techniques. So we could use a neural network, but simply put, we calculate the numbers. Calculating the numbers. And neural network is nothing special, just mathematical model. Calculate those influence and get the factors.
For this case, this is like a cross-section analysis. Just one time.
In this
analysis.
case, in the credit card fraud detection case, this is a cross-sectional analysis.
Yeah.
But
In order to predict the behavior of the debit collector and so on, I think we need more.
Yes, you can have time series as well.
We need
So-
past experience and then we can.
Right.
I can show you here.
Mhm.
So the now the cutting edge technology, the deep neural network, it has a feature of the time series, which means it can always record the historic performance,
Yeah.
use the historic performance to predict the
Predicting.
future performance. Yeah. So here I am going to introduce this project I'm working with Xuan. And the new technology is a new form of the neural network. It has different layers, but the layers is kind of different from the previous ones. The difference is more complicated and more powerful, and it can extract the different features from the face and use process the data through layers to recognize the face of the people. So that's the face recognition. That's the algorithm underneath the face recognition. So use the same idea or methodology. We want to find if we input a pile of financial statement and we want to say this financial statement is managed or has some kind of fraud or misstatement. So we process it then into those layers and let the machine decide which this financial statement contains some kind of fraud or errors inside. So the deep neural network is like a game. It's like a game. When for every environment, we give the machine a piece of information, and the machine decides this is correct information or not correct information. If the machine gets the correct decision, we reward this machine, and if the machine gonna make a wrong decision, we punish this machine. So in this dynamic environment, we want to improve the prediction accuracy of that machine, and this machine to like enhance the performance of the machine. So this is like similar from the previous one. We have a lot of different layers, and this layer is slightly different from the regular neural network layer because they are deep neural network filters. So our input, if we saw it like a black box, our input are financial ratios and the percentage change of the financial ratios and the abnormal percentage change of the financial ratios comparing to the peer companies or comparing to the industry average. And we process this data through these layers, and we get an output of whether the fraud schemes, such as the fraud, the misappropriation, corruption, or overstate of the revenue account, understate the expense account, or improperly capitalization of the expense, or overstate of the earnings. So there are different types of fraud scheme that this machine, we want the machine to recognize them, and finally, whether this financial statement has been perpetrated to one type of fraud, they can recognize it and call it this. There may be something wrong with, and tell the auditor there may be something wrong with the financial statement, and then maybe you can go back and check something details in this account, and this account. So we collect data from the SEC and the restatement database, and for the fraud schemes we collect the details from the Edgar system, and our result shows that if we use the deep neural network here, the correct classification rate is 70%, which means with 70% probability, we can classify, we can correctly classify this piece of financial statement has contained some error in this account, and this account. And we're still working on this to improve the performance of our machine, such as we want to input some textual information from the news or from the firm announcement, and we want to create a better benchmark. Because before we use in industry median or industry average, but here we want to try to find the best matched groups to find the best benchmark to calculate the abnormal behavior. So our pilot result shows that our benchmark is better than the SIC, the industry classification code, and we use those ratios to collect the most matched peer companies. and let's say find whether how much it will improve our prediction in currency. That's all. That's all I'm doing. Thank you.
So next one is about text mining. So these are the new area. So in an accounting area, we play with those numbers, which is the financial number, and to detect the fraud or to find out something else. And nowadays, the financial analysts try to use, and everybody wants to use non-financial data. So information in footnote or MD&A, the news media, and there is a technique we can use these, words, text. So the technique is called the text mining, and so Professor Marpit will introduce how we can use this text mining technique for the, our own analysis. So taking the fraud or the financial statement analysis, anything. And he's going to give you, a brief overview of the text mining techniques.
No. Yes. You have a big hand, so you can use it. Just use the space bar. Good.
Okay. My name is Kevin Moffat. You can just call me Kevin. We're friends, We're colleagues. So welcome to my country. Many of you have been here before, yes?
Yes.
Well, while you're in this area, I suggest you visit some of our famous sites. Very beautiful Statue of Liberty, Central Park, the new Freedom Tower, the,
World Trade
place,
Center.
the World Trade Center, and Trump Tower. Public space. Anyone can go in the Trump Tower lobby.
No, I don't think so. There is security guard everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can go in the lobby.
Lobby.
Yeah, but you have to pass through those security.
Yeah, but I'm not carrying a gun. I can go in the lobby. Yes.
They're removing the Trump Tower, the tag of the Trump Tower. They remove that.
Oh, they did?
they are doing that now.
Oh, okay. What is it going to say?
I don't know.
Okay.
President Tower or whatever.
All right. Well, maybe I'll go to Indonesia someday.
Oh, that's nice. I much better
See
be
this
there.
place. I don't know what it's called, but it looks nice.
Very nice.
Bali Island.
Belugul.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much better than Trump Tower.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. You can go.
Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
That's Indonesia too, according to Google. Look at that one. That's a traffic circle.
No.
Very nice traffic circle.
Very nice.
Same.
And maybe
Yeah.
someday I can see your president. I heard he likes hard rock. Okay. Is that true? All right. So my topic is text analytics. So basically, what I do is I take text in English. What language do you speak? Indonesian? Is that?
Yes.
What's that like? It's like Chinese.
It's different. It's like Malay.
Okay.
English language.
Like Malay.
Okay, I just really have no idea. But
And
if
can
you would look at Indonesian, I look at English, but many of these techniques would apply to any language. So now, because of computerization, the internet, there's a lot of text available, and you can download it all onto your computer. And so people are trying to extract information from the text automatically and gather new information that they didn't know before, right? So this is the idea behind text analytics. And now, in the past 6 or 7 years, a lot of researchers in accounting have been publishing papers where they look at accounting documents and they look at the text to try to do certain things like detect fraud or predict future earnings. They look at the sentiment of the text. Are the managers very positive about the future or very negative about the future? They look at the earnings calls. So every quarter, the CEO will talk to the analysts and say how their company's doing, and the analysts get to ask questions. And we have the text from those calls, and we can try and say, well, is the CEO telling the truth or not? You know, we can do those types of studies with the text. So a very interesting area, and there's a million things you can do that haven't been done yet. So it's always finding new projects to work on. So here are some general areas in text analytics. So if you think about Google is the master of text analytics. You enter a search term, and they know how to find the best web pages based on your search term. So they're masters in information retrieval. So you have concept extraction, natural language processing, clustering documents together, classify documents as certain types. These are all text mining areas. So, like your email, you have a spam filter. So people send you emails you don't really want, and Google's algorithm detects them based on the words and based on the sender. So maybe they're sending you free trials or something about e-cigarettes or anything, and they can detect the spam. So that's a document classification exercise. An example of web mining. So this is another Google tool. So they are actually able to pretty accurately predict or show, like if there's some sort of an outbreak like dengue fever. So if you look at the Google estimate is in blue, they have current data at that time in 2011. That was current, but the data from the country was a year behind. So because of search terms, you can get a lot of information from the web. So I'll give you an example of a project that I completed recently, and may begin again, with a bank in Brazil, where they were wanting to analyze their COBOL code. Do you guys know what COBOL code is? It's everywhere around the world. And in this particular bank, they had millions of unaudited lines of code. And they found out that some people had put in special favors for themselves and for their friends in the code. So for example, if you see a certain account number, then you're going to give 100% discount for a certain product. Okay?
So he's a programmer, I'm his friend, and he knows me. So in the code, whenever I borrow the money from the bank, I got 100% discount.
Yeah. So there are certain patterns in the code that hopefully we could detect. The problem was the auditors knew that there was problems in the code, but they didn't know where to look. So we were going to create a system to help steer them toward the bad code. All right. So that's basically what I just said. So here are some examples. So here you have the superintendent of commercial businesses, and they look at these count numbers, and if it's this count number or that one, then the fees are set to 0. Okay? Another risk is to have social security numbers or tax identification numbers hard-coded in the code. You don't want that, so we were looking for those as well. And here is a contractor who wouldn't be charged for a specific product. So they gave me all of these examples of fraud. So what I did is I designed some patterns using regular expressions. You guys, how many of you know a little bit about coding, programming? Okay. You, right? So do you know what regular expressions are? No.
Like the if and then.
What's that? If then else? What?
If then else.
No, that's the program flow. So basically, how many of you use Microsoft Word?
Everyone uses
Everyone.
Word.
Okay, good. Then we're on the same page. So if you try to find a word, I push Control F. I don't know what you push.
See.
Something similar. And it opens up this dialog box.
Yeah.
And you can search for a word in a document or a phrase. And sometimes you can use wildcards.
Right.
You could use a star, which would mean any letter.
Star
Any,
and
you know.
question mark and
And to make your search more robust, I mean, in fact, if with regular, that's kind of like regular expressions. You use wildcards. So you can search for all phone numbers in the text, something like that, by using regular expressions, or find all email addresses. You could also find give me any line of code that starts with if product equals, has some numbers in it, and then has the move B. Okay, you just look for patterns in the text. So I wrote these pattern detection algorithms called regular expressions, and we just count how many times we see those patterns in the code. So here's basically a flowchart of our system. So first we take these COBOL files, which have the actual code in them. So maybe 10,000 lines in each file. And I identify the suspicious lines of code by matching them to my patterns that I create. I should have put the patterns up here. I thought it would be boring. So then I look at the files and that have the suspicious patterns, and I extract the pieces of code. And after I extract the pieces of code, I can manually inspect them. Then I also count the number of times I find the suspicious code in each file, and I create a data file. Let me go through this more quickly and show you exactly what I have. So these are the different patterns that I create, okay? And we built this in Excel. So here's one pattern called Conta. And so if you find the word conta and then move or something like that, then it extracts the code and puts it in this sheet. Okay? So this is suspicious code that matched a certain pattern called conta. And these are all different patterns, like suspicious numbers, like social security numbers, something with the word Gencia, and so on. Many different patterns, and all the code is extracted so we can visually inspect it. And here's some code. So another thing we did is we took each file and we count the number of times we see a match for each pattern. And when we identify a file as fraudulent, we annotate it, we mark it with a 1. Another thing we do is generate a suspicion score based on these numbers. So we tell the auditor, look, here's a file with a high suspicion score. Go look at that one first, because there are some suspicious matches in that file. Now this is all dummy data, it's all fake. So the system works, but I only had 3 files, so I created a bunch more just to show what the system would do. But the idea is create these. Remember, the auditors had no idea where to look, right? No idea where the fraudulent code is. So we create a suspicion score to help guide them in their search. All right?
They actually, when I was there just recently, they said they are using it.
Yeah?
Yeah, they are live usage.
Oh, good.
And they wrote a robot that basically picks up all these programs. These are hundreds of thousands of programs. There are a lot of programs and many lines of code. So they wrote a little software, Spider, that picks up the programs, run to this code, Kevin's code, and then look at exceptions. So it's actual usage of the work.
I think it's very
Yes.
interesting that because I'm an IT auditor, so when I see that a certain applications or program is about to be finished and to be going live, then I think your programming here, tax mining that you mentioned, is critically important. I think it's a prerequisite before an application going to live. So we have to review the source code in such a way that we do this text mining, ensuring there is no such a hidden instructions in the design of the program, so that we can prevent that program when it goes into live, there is a potential fraudulent things happening into the program. So it's really, remind me how important it is that we have to do such a detailed testing on this text mining that you mentioned. Sure.
Thank you. Actually, the tool we built is really nice because it allows you to enter the patterns you're looking for without modifying the code directly. So you have we have everything's in Excel, in VBA in Excel. You can program in Excel using VBA. So what they have is a column, and you enter into the cell your regular expressions, and it automatically sucks that into the program and looks for those patterns in the file, so you don't have to modify the VBA code directly. So
do you do more research on the identifying what patterns, what keywords that we need to be aware of? Because it's kind of like developing a knowledge, discuss about it, so that I can apply it whenever I do an audit of the source code before it is finalized.
Well, for each particular domain, you have to have a strategy for identifying the keywords you're interested in. So I had some auditors from the bank, and we had meetings, and they told me what words to look for. In fact, my next little discussion will be about this, where accounting and finance researchers were having trouble analyzing the positive, negative sentiment in accounting documents like annual reports, things like that, because they were relying on lists of positive and negative words that were for general usage. Okay, so maybe some words are positive or negative when we talk to each other, normal conversation, but when you read a financial document, maybe it's neutral, or maybe it's reverse. So they came up with a list of words, sentiment words, just for research in accounting and finance domain. So then the researchers who did this were Tim Lochran and Bill McDonald. And so these words right here are in a list of words that are supposedly negative. These are negative words according to this word list called Harvard GI, or General Inquirer. So these are lists. So cost, that's a negative word, I guess, because you don't want something to cost you. You lose something.
We would like to reduce costs. That's right.
What's that?
Because we would like to reduce costs.
Yeah, reduce your costs, right?
So it's negative.
Or it's going to cost me my job.
Is fallen a bad word?
Is vice a bad word?
I don't know.
Why vice is?
Well, vice is
Vice president.
well,
Vice president.
Vice president, but here in normal conversation, a vice is like a bad habit.
Vice dean also.
No, true, but if I have a vice, it means I have a bad habit. Like maybe I smoke too much or something. That's a vice. But you're right. It's not a bad word in annual reports, because vice president or vice, what else?
Chair.
Chair.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's not. Or the word cancer.
Yeah.
So cancer is negative.
Illness.
But if you're talking about a business where their business is to cure cancer, then in our financial reports, it's not negative. It's just a word associated with the industry. Liability, everyone has liabilities. Foreign, if I have a foreign object in my eye, or if something is foreign to me, it means I don't understand it, but it wouldn't be negative in accounting research, right? And here are words that were not negative, but certainly are negative when we're talking about business. I don't know why felony wasn't in it. That's negative all the time. Litigation is very negative for a business, right? Because you're going to lose some money. Restated,
Very negative.
misstatement, unanticipated. These have negative connotations for
Fraud.
businesses. Yeah, fraud is probably in there. All right. So what they did is they created these custom dictionaries for accounting and finance. A negative dictionary of negative words, positive words, uncertain words, and so on. Litigation words, and these strong and weak modal words.
What do you mean?
It like should or would or could or must. Those are some examples. So if something should happen, that's weak. But if it must happen, that's strong. These are very small lists of like 10 words each. Yeah. So the way they created these dictionaries is they looked at the annual reports for 15 years. And they looked at all the words that, let's say there's 20,000, maybe there's 5,000 words or more that occur in at least 5% of the documents. And they looked at them all manually. They read every one of them, and they determined whether they were positive or negative. And they used PhD students to do this too. So they found 2,337 negative words, 353 positive words, and so on. And you can now use these lists of words to do research. You can say, oh, this document has 100 words, 10,000 total words, or 100 positive words, 10,000 total words. So 1% of these words are positive, and maybe half of that is negative. So maybe it's positive down, something like that. You can use these word lists in all kinds of different ways. Very common for researchers in our area to use their word lists for sentiment analysis. So here's what they did. They showed that in the they look at annual reports, and they look at the returns, okay, company returns, and they show that as the language becomes more negative, using their dictionary as the dark black line, the language becomes more negative, the returns also become more negative. Okay, so the company does worse. But this old dictionary, the Harvard dictionary, it has no pattern. The language becomes very negative, but the returns go up and down and up and down. There's no relationship. Okay. So they're saying that their word list is better than a general word list. Any questions so far?
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Now, what sometimes you might want to do is create your own word list.
Yes.
Yes. And I've
Well,
got a couple words to say about that. Do you have something to say?
Well, I mean, especially when we have a different language, of course.
Oh,
we
yes,
have to
yes.
develop. And the culture may mean a different sense. Right?
The what are?
The culture.
Oh, the culture. Yes, exactly.
Whether
So
it's a strong or weak means it's.
yeah. So you definitely have a lot of work to do. And maybe some people have already done this. You know, you have a big country, so a lot of people working on this problem. Yeah.
So when you make a dictionary, you decide whether this word is negative or positive. You make your own judgment, right?
That's one way to do it. Yep.
Or a group of people together.
Yeah, a group of people. Yeah, they use a group of people. In fact, after they published their first paper, then they got a lot of feedback that said you should use this word and this word and this word, and they improved it further. So it's pretty good now.
I've been on the empirical study do you apply this to, for example, like a group of like this company who made a trouble like Andron, and then this company who created a lot of profit like Unilever?
Yeah,
Are they
no,
coming
you-
up with a different result?
Exactly. Maybe one thing one person did is they said, here are all the sentences that are in the management discussion section. Here are all the sentences that are forward-looking. They have basically future tense words in there. You know, they talk about the future. Now we're only going to look at those sentences, and if they're more positive, does that mean that they're going to be more profitable in the future? If they're more negative, does that mean they're going to be less profitable in the future?
Signal of not performing.
Yeah. So people are looking at exactly those things you're talking about. Now, I've gotten a little bit interested in dictionary creation methods. So one way to create dictionaries is to do what they did in the last paper. Just look at all the words and decide which ones belong in your specific list of words. So a dictionary would be, just to remind you, a dictionary is your list of words. Your list of positive words, your list of negative words, whatever list of words you want to come up with. So one way, just do what they did. Just manually create your list of words.
We as PhD students don't like that idea, correct?
It takes a lot. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes you can find lists of words on the internet already, and maybe they weren't meant to be used as a dictionary, but they work just fine. And I'm going to show you an example of that next. But a third thing that I did with the student is we automatically created a list of words. So you guys remember the financial crisis? I don't know how it affected your country, but it was bad for our country. It was bad for the whole world, right?
It is.
So what we did is we looked for 50 articles from the Wall Street Journal newspaper about the financial crisis. 50. And then we used an algorithm that extracts basically the most important words out of those 50 articles, or the most common words. Not just the most common, but the most important and most common words from the 50 articles. And we use that as our dictionary for the financial crisis. Here are the words that relate to the financial crisis. And it works really well. So we came up with a dictionary automatically. We didn't have to do anything to curate the list. We didn't have to manually identify the words. We just used the only thing we did was manually identify the newspaper articles about the crisis. But after that, we used our algorithm. This is called LDA, Latent Dirichlet Allocation Algorithm. So we automatically generate a dictionary. So that's really nice. I'm going to show you an example of this one. What time is it? 1?
You have about 15 minutes.
Okay. I'll end early if you want. Then we can go to dinner early. Really good place. Really good place.
Delicious.
Okay. So, I was working on a research proposal with a guy over at University of Southern California, and our proposal, we were going to say, you know what, we are going to determine which product shortcomings based on customer reviews of products will help predict future warranty expenses. So you know when you have like, I don't know, but here when we have a problem with, we buy a new computer, we buy a new toaster, a new lawnmower.
Note 7.
Samsung Galaxy Note 7.
That's the good example.
And there's a problem with it, and it's under warranty, so you can return it. And that's good. That's great. I can return something, but the company has anticipated this, so they have warranty reserves in place. But once they pay for a return, once they pay for that warranty, it counts as an expense. So how can we predict future warranty expenses based on customer reviews? Now we haven't finished. This is just a proposal saying, yeah, we can do this. So what we did is we did a small little project to show them something we could do. And hopefully they'll give us money to do the rest of the study. So here's what we So there's a website called Edmunds. I don't know if you're familiar with Edmunds, but what it has is customer reviews and also professional reviews on automobiles. So every brand, every make, every model, and every year, they have reviews from customers. You can write a review about your car and say how good it is or how bad it is. You can give it a 5-star rating or a 1-star rating. You can actually rate it in different ways. And so our idea was, let's look at the bad reviews where people didn't like the car, and let's see if we can find out why. So I say what we did, but I would say what I did. What I did is I thought, well, let's find lists of words related to car parts. So I went to Wikipedia and some other sites, and I thought, oh, they have lists of words about car parts. In fact, each item in the list is actually a whole article. I don't need the whole article, I just need the list. So I created 26 dictionaries from these websites. I have a dictionary on engine parts, fuel supply, fuel economy, transmission, braking, windows and doors, the interior. I have one called Other. So 26 dictionaries. I can show them to you, but
It's okay.
I want to show you. I'll prove to you I have them. Okay. So I store all these lists of words in separate text files. And then I took all the customer reviews from Edmunds.com. They actually provide an API, which means I can write a little program and access all the customer reviews and then just suck them into my own data. So I used their API. I stored all their customer reviews in an Excel file. And then I start counting how many times I see words about engine parts. And I'm only looking right now at the negative reviews. So if they don't like their car, what do they mention the most? Engine parts, fuel supply, fuel economy, etc. Well, at the time I was looking for a new truck. I didn't buy one, but I was looking, right? It's fun to look. And I thought, a Ford F-150 is a popular truck, most popular car in America, actually. And that was the one I was researching. So I wanted to look at all the most common complaints about the F-150. And so let's see if I can pull up my results. Okay, this is very raw. You like raw results, not summarized results. Okay. So across the top, I have this sum of thing, but it's basically, these are the different dictionaries, right? So mileage, that's like the fuel economy. Other, braking, transmission, okay? So the doors, engine parts, interior, suspensions. These are all the different categories. And these are the counts of how many times I detected a complaint about fuel economy for the Ford F-150 1990. So the 1990 year model. Now 1990 didn't have very many reviews. I mean, the internet was brand new in 1990, right?
Yes.
How many of you had internet in 1990?
I had internet, but
I had it.
not web. Web didn't exist in 1990.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have the Mosaic web browser in like 1991 or something.
99. That's good.
Yeah, so there are not very many reviews. In fact, over here I have, this is the total number of views for each year. So 23 in 1990, 1919, 27, and then it really goes up high in the 2000s, like 500 reviews that year. It was a very popular website, and then it goes back down actually. So across the bottom, this is the total number of complaints for all years about this category for fuel economy. This is how they're sorted. So this is the category with the most complaints, 118. The other group, braking is 40, 35 for transmission, 28 for doors, 19 for engine parts, and that's across all. That's summing up the whole year, all the years for that category. But I look over here, and what do I have? I have, let's see the name of this column is. Okay, so this is the total number of negative comments for each year, and this is the total number of negative issues raised that I identified, and this is the just total number of comments in general. That's the total number of negative comments. So there's 23 comments, 5 are negative, and there's 2 issues. So out of 23 comments, there's a rate of 0.09 issues raised out of 23. And out of the 5 negative comments, I identified 2 negative issues using my dictionaries. So using this as a sort of, actually, I was wrong. This is the rate of negative comments. That means out of 23 comments, 5 were negative. So the most negative years were 1992, 2016, 2012, 2011, and the very best year was 2008. There were 64 comments. I couldn't find any of the issues using my dictionaries, and only out of the 64, only 3 were negative. So in the future, I hope to be able to say, and hope to be able to predict for each year what were the types of warranty claims that were made based on the customer complaints. And that's all I have. And
Just one generic comment. Go ahead.
No, this, when you define the negative and positive words itself, sometimes in the sentences there is like contradictory,
Double
like
negative.
no
yeah, that's right.
no
Yeah.
foreign. It means positive.
Yes,
It's
a double
no,
negative,
it's not
so which is
good.
bad.
Yeah. No.
Not
So
good, yeah.
how you can define whether it is the meaning is positive or negative?
Yeah. So one thing you can do that Lochran and McDonald, what they do, because I guess the easy way out is don't count positive words, because those are easily negated using your
Negative.
technique. Yeah, just putting a negation before.
Um,
Negative words are not negated usually. A double negative, you don't see those in English. Other languages, you do see double negatives. I know in Spanish and probably Portuguese, you say not,
Nada mal.
yeah, nothing bad. Yeah.
nothing.
So you say double negatives, but in English you don't use double negatives that often.
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah, but
But in the financial statements, they would rather say we are performing good this year rather than say we are not performing bad this year. Right?
yeah. Another thing you can do is you can actually write little pieces of code that say, if you see a positive word, or look for these negations, so many words before within a certain window, and then you can count it as either neutral or positive instead of, or neutral or negative or something like that. But that's a good point. I'm really excited about the automatic dictionary creation. It's fun. It's fun to do.
They are going to do a workshop for the IMA in American College, and they are filling in for me so I can have dinner with you.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to make go ahead.
So some of comments, when I leave the comment in Amazon, when I buy something in Amazon, when they leave the negative comment, they usually say something about this is, good, but I don't like it, like because of such and such and such.
They mentioned the good things and the
Good
bad
things and the bad thing at the
Yeah,
same
that's
time.
right.
So how do you differentiate that?
Oh, right now I don't, and I just count the
Counter that, the word.
items in the negative comments. Yeah. I start at the easiest
I know.
method. Yeah.
I don't want to
That-
make an argument, but
Yeah,
that's the
no,
thing.
you're right. You're right. I thought that thought had crossed my mind.
And yeah, and also how you can anticipate if there is a competitors who say the bad things about the other competitors. So it may be accounted for, especially when the competition is being fierce.
Yeah.
So they may ask somebody to say bad words about the other competitor's product, right?
Well, I mean, that's true. I wouldn't expect that as much on Edmunds, but on Amazon, it's another data source where you can actually download all Amazon comments. Well, I don't know about all, but many years up to 2014.
Oh,
All comments for every product.
do they have API in Amazon?
It's a researcher at the University of San Diego or UCSD. I'm not sure which one in San Diego. And you can find her webpage and you request access to the data, and you can just download all the comments and it'll tell you whether it's a 5-star rating, 4-star rating, the comment itself, also how many people like the comment. She also provides that. That's useful too. Thank you.
So this area of semantic analysis, text mining, is very popular at this moment in research. And it's particularly popular because big data has this unstructured part of it. And you are used to analyze internal company data which is structured. And from one second to the other, you have comments, you have all kind of unstructured things in the web. So although text mining was very hot, 20 years ago is much hotter now. This is a very important area. Kevin has several PhD students working with him in different versions of what's being done here. And very applicable in any country, literally. But it would be nice to know the local language and have dictionaries for the local language. But there are dictionaries in many languages, and there
Yeah.
many languages. Yeah.
I guess you just have to look.
And if you are talking about the dialect of Indonesian, then there are less dictionaries there. And you need to consult Kevin of how to build a dictionary. So, question for you, logistics. Is your boss picking you up to come over to the restaurant, or we need to figure out a way to get you to the restaurant?
We started
Right here.
Huh?
Right here.
The restaurant, the dinner is not here, it's in the restaurant, which is 10 minutes from here.
We need to at least to be one of you be with us in the bus, then he can give the instructions to our driver.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Houston, are you going to dinner with
Yeah.
us?
Yeah.
Good. Can you go with, you don't have a car, do you?
I have a car, but I can go with it.
Yeah, can you go with you? I'll drop you off afterwards in the car.
Yeah.
I'll give you a ride
Okay.
when I
Yeah.
get there. Yeah.
Kevin, are you joining us for dinner?
Yes.
Good. Good. So we are going, the restaurant is a Spanish restaurant. I said no pork, no liquor, so everything will be okay.
So before we go to the dinner,
Yeah. It's 10 minutes from here in Harris. Very close.
Here.
Picture basically has more kinds of things if they work with us, what kind of things.
Let's do it in dinner. We also you help them, help Kevin to do that.
Do I?
The main
Oh, okay. While we're eating dinner.
The appetizers are very good, so it's very easy to eat too many appetizers and not having appetite for dinner.
AC.
Coba deh Pak, itu Pak.
Alright, thank you.
Nanti itu bisa pakai yang hari ini kan Spanish Pavilion sama
PDF file that captured all the presentation. No, not the presentation, those.
Very interesting.
How do you put the poster?
So
The poster we post on the.
Yeah, we have a PDF. They all got it.
Oh, they got it?
Well,
Yeah.
mostly I just work with other.
I had other
accountants.
opinion.
I'm the
Okay, good.
expert in linguistics, I
You
guess.
can have it in
Even
there.
though
I was able to find the one of the.